Welcome back to another episode of the Postpartum Wellness Show. I'm Dr. Kristal Lau, your host, and today we will be talking a little bit more about the first 1000 days of life concept of early childhood development and how postpartum ties in nicely to that concept. I first brought up this topic in the previous episode when we talked about needing to redefine the postpartum duration to up to 2 years after childbirth. But first, a very quick disclaimer. Please remember that this podcast is purely for educational and informational purposes only. I am not giving you any medical advice here. If you have any medical questions and concerns, please see your healthcare provider, okay? So now let's dive into the first 1000 days of life. Now, what is this concept and what does it mean? So the first 1000 days of life, it describes how, in the early days of childhood development, that if we can optimize the environment best for children, then, they have a very good chance of thriving and doing really well going forward. But what counts as the first 1000 days of life? The kind of easy assumption is that, it's from the day they were born and 1000 days later. But no, the definition is from the day of conception and up to the child's 2 years birthday. So up until the child is 2 years old. So that is the first 1000 days of life. So what this implies is that the best chance for a child or the next generation to be extremely healthy or as healthy as possible is first to have really good quality sperm and egg, which means that it is in our interest. When I say ours, means every single one of us on this planet who is involved in some capacity in the things that we do, to influence the health and well-being of the sperm donors and egg donors. Yeah, because the quality of the DNA is important. And once fertilization and conception happens, of course, we have a lot of work being done to promote and optimize the pregnancy quality for mothers and birthing parents. So antenatal care and then perinatal care, which includes postpartum as well. But what's not really highlighted or given a lot of emphasis as a whole is postpartum. That's why the show exists, to encourage all of you and all of us to pay attention to this time. So on top of, prenatal care, we really need to have a much more robust postpartum care, which is why in the last episode I talked about a dire need for us to ditch the 6 to 8 week clinical time frame and adopt a new one, which is up to 2 years. And this is exactly why I'm proposing the 2-year mark as the postpartum, because the first 1000 days of life includes up to the child is 2 years old. So that makes a lot of sense, isn't it? That we should provide good postpartum care for the first 2 years after childbirth. Not only that, recall that the WHO recommendation is at least 18 months in between pregnancies so that the mother and the birthing parent has enough time not just to recover physically from the previous pregnancy and birthing experience, but also for space to grow socially, emotionally, and to get more mental health support as well during this time with all of the changes that are happening. So it's a no-brainer, and I could just end the episode right here, right now. But no, I'm gonna have you along with me for the ride a little bit more, because I want to explore more with you on what is included or what is deemed important for the children in the first 1000 days of life. There is an illustration that I want to share with you. It is downloadable from the free membership that I have. The link is in the show notes. And this picture comes from the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, Australia. And I have the link as well, so you can check it out from the show notes. And also within the free membership, you can go and check out any additional things that I have there related to this episode. Now, I love this picture because it paints a very nice summary on what kids need in these early days so that they have the best chance for lifelong health. And it's not just health, but opportunities, because it's very interesting that what they found during the study and development of this concept is, and I'm reading this from a little part of the Royal Children's Hospital website, is that disadvantage can be passed down through the generations at a cellular level. Our biology changes in response to stress, poverty, and other prolonged adverse experiences. And these changes can be passed on to children from their parents and grandparents. And we've heard this before, that especially in the context of girls and the maternal DNA, how the ovaries in girls, the quality of the eggs is already determined when we are growing in the bellies of our mothers. So essentially, our grandmother's health and well being is affecting our children's health, especially when they're girls as well. So this is so fascinating to me, but that's science. And this is the human experience, isn't it? This is our biology. So it makes sense that we want to optimize things as best as possible for children so that they can then have the best chance to thrive themselves and to provide the best for their children and the future generation. So what does the 1000 days of life say that children need? So from this illustration, I'm going to read it out to you. Children need opportunities to learn through play, green spaces, nutritious food, safe communities, toxin-free environments, loving, responsive relationships, and secure housing. I know that a big part of when I first started searching more about this concept, there was a lot of nutrition programs related to the first 1000 days. And absolutely, because when the kids go through their growth spurts and all that, they just want to eat. But we also want to make sure they get the best so that their bodies have all the essential nutrients and more for them to grow and to thrive. But when we look at the other aspects of what they need, it is the responsibility of authorities and leaders as well, because they need to ensure their policies in place and town planning programs in place that they can build green spaces or preserve green spaces actually while we expand and build, to provide safe communities. And to build safe communities, that takes a collective effort as well as the involvement of leadership and authorities. Toxin-free environments, we know that's a heck of a problem these days, part of my language there, with all the pollution and climate change going on. Secure housing as well. That is an employment thing. It's also how our leaders tackle trade, economies. There are a lot of things here that the parents themselves can't fully control. But at the same time, there's also a big part of all this is without the parents being involved, then the kids are not going to get these opportunities to learn through play, green spaces, nutritious food. End of the day, we got to be realistic. Who is directly involved with the well-being of the child from the get-go? It's the parents. And especially for first-time parents, it's even more important to help them navigate the postpartum period. Or for parents who didn't get that support before, perhaps with the next few children they have, if they choose to have more children, they can then have a better postpartum experience and better support, which it flows through to the kids, absolutely. Because remember this, children are like sponges. And this is something I've been told many times by pediatric nurses and pediatric psychologists as well. Our children, even before they can speak or really process a bunch of stuff that's happening, their nervous system can already sense and read the room. They rely on the grown-ups around them to regulate, to learn what's safe, what's not. And so if we're not able to give parents both education, support, and the confidence to feel like they can do the job and that they can do it to their best ability or to get help to do it, then how are they supposed to provide a stable and responsive and loving type of nervous system output, so to speak, for the babies and the young kids to pick up? So again, I like to say it's kind of common sense once you look at these things. And I like to always ask my audience, even when I give the lectures, is Just think about yourself when you were a child. We don't have to go so far to say, oh, put yourself in the shoes of your patients or your clients or the parent. Just think of yourself as a child. How were things like when you were around your family? And unfortunately, I want to say that I think a lot of us come from dysfunctional families. Very good if you did not, and that you had good role models to model for you what a loving relationship looks like, and your parents could provide you safe housing, a safe community, nutritious food. That is fantastic. But those of us who can resonate with that, even till today as a grown up, how are you like when you're around your parents or the grown ups in your life? Because that tells you a lot about what your nervous system had picked up and processed and normalized for you since you were a child. So I'm just going to leave you with that, and we'll go back to the first 1000 days of life here. Okay. So for me, it makes a lot of sense that we expand, or rather, we bring a spotlight to parents and the postpartum experience alongside the child when we talk about the first 1000 days. And this is where I also encourage those of you listening who are in positions of being able to push out maybe strong white papers through organizations or publication in journals, or you're part of organizations that influence clinical guidelines. Please think about really pushing for redefining the postpartum period to up to 2 years after childbirth. If you want to reach out to me, we work together. I would be so happy if you would do that. My email is in the show notes as well. But let's think about really doing this. But until that can be changed, what can we do for the rest of us that I say we're the mere mortals in this world where we can't control what's being done on the high levels with policies and guidelines, is you can still apply in your practice that when a patient comes to see you or your client comes to see you and they tell you, I just had a child a year ago, you can already think to yourself, okay, there's a chance that they could still be experiencing some after effects of childbirth, both for the man and the woman, the birthing parent and the non-birthing parent, okay? And you can already in your mind start applying this postpartum duration of 2 years after childbirth, and also start thinking about, okay, first 1000 days of life, my patient is, I have a 1-year-old at home, for example, and we want to ensure that both of the parent and the parents and the child have access to, for example, green spaces and nutritious food. What can I do to help them achieve that? Yeah. And I think this is a great start to providing better care, is those of us on the ground doing the field work. Sometimes it's not prudent to just wait for guidelines to change. And I feel like, to my fellow physicians listening, I feel like a lot of us have gotten caught up with following guidelines, that also the fear of, malpractice to some extent, or mistakes, because we're all human end of the day. Even if AI can't get everything right, I gotta put that plug in there. I think sometimes we forget that a lot of innovations and advocacy for patients have come through us at the ground, pushing for change and standing alongside our patients to push for a better outcome for them. So yeah, if any of y'all feeling brave and you want to do more of that, of course, again, feel free to contact me. But as always, my postpartum wellness show is to challenge a lot of what's the status quo out there, because many times a lot of ways we are tackling postpartum health and well-being is just so outdated. And we're in 2026. We're at the era of AI, and we're still stuck looking at postpartum at 6 to 8 weeks. You're going to hear me harping about that in these first few episodes of this year, because it just feels ridiculous to me at this point that we're still doing that. But that's the crux of today's episode, is for me to explain to you how I am developing the view or the need for us to change our perception of postpartum. And eventually, I'll talk to you about why I decided to call my show the Postpartum Wellness Show, and to put postpartum under the wellness umbrella. I know it's a bit of a contention there, but have a dig at me in the other the next episode when I go into this, okay? Happy to always have a little banter over there. But yes, first 1,000 days of life, important for children as well as parents. And I would even go as far as to say fertility planning and optimizing the health of the folks who want to be parents, because that sets you up not just for a healthier future generation, but for yourself, for themselves as parents as well. I do want to leave on a last note that earlier when I mentioned that children are sponges, is a lot of the times the things we do at home, our kids are always watching. Again, think back to yourself as a child. How do you know? How can you observe, the things that are happening between your parents or whoever the grown-ups are at home for you? Is because the kids, we're always watching, we're always learning, we're always observing. And so the things we do, how we talk to even ourselves, how we treat ourselves, they watch and learn this, especially if you are the same sex and gender as your child. They're watching. And when we're not able to love ourselves and to care for ourselves as parents, then there's a high chance that it gives the kids a perception that, gosh, it must be terrible to be a parent, isn't it? So why would I want to be one when I grow up? So imagine what we can do for parents if we start this even super early on, and the parents already feel such love and amazement for what they do. And I think that would be amazing. So on that note, you guys take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.